Today on Mr. Media, I'll talk to social media marketing expert Toby Bloomberg and tell you how to download her new ebook for free. Stick around.
Hey, did you know that you can listen to the latest Mr. Media show right on your phone with the Stitcher app? Stitcher is smart radio for your smartphone. Mr. Media is on demand and on the go with Stitcher. Download Stitcher for your phone today. Get the free app at www.stitcher.com. That's STITCHER.com.
So much media, so little time. Who keeps track of it all? That would be me. This is Bob Andelman, and this is a Mr. Media interview. You know, MrMedia.com, MRmedia.com, 600 interviews just waiting to be listened to by you at our site. The show is brought to you today by thepartyauthority.us. Planning a wedding, mitzvah, or corporate event? For any and all occasions, call the Party Authority nationwide at 1-800-DIAL-DJs. That's 1-800-342-5357, where one call does it all. So where was I before the commercial? Oh yeah, Mr. Media is recorded live from the new media capital of the world, St. Petersburg, Florida. I'm one of those people you hear about who has a lot riding on the developing reach and power of social media such as Facebook and Twitter. This show, Mr. Media Radio, relies heavily on the kindness of strangers to post and tweet about favorite episodes, sharing recommendations with friends, neighbors, and more than a few people they'll never, ever meet in person. That's the new word of mouth in 2010. It's word of tweet. As a result, I'm always greedily on the lookout for someone who can expand my own knowledge and understanding of social media, and, of course, who will share their experience with you. Toby Bloomberg, who will join us on the phone in a moment, is just such a person. Her new ebook, Social Media Marketing GPS, A Guide to Social Media One Tweet at a Time, is just that, a book written almost entirely in 140-character tweets. That's right. Some generations wrote their thoughts for the ages in iambic pentameter, others in haiku. We'll be remembered as a bunch of freaking tweeters. Toby Bloomberg, however, is no freak. She's widely recognized and respected for her expertise in combining social media with traditional marketing values such as strategy, customer insights, segmentation, etc. Toby not only talks about the social web, but is actively involved in the conversation. Her blog, Diva Marketing, launched in 2004 and was acknowledged by Forbes as one of the 20 best marketing and social media blogs by women. Now, you can download her new book, Social Media Marketing, for free by clicking the book cover on her blog at divamarketingblog.com. And at that, Toby Bloomberg, welcome to Mr. Media.
Absolute pleasure, Bob. Thanks for having me.
Was that
140 feet?
Just for this interview, I'm not going to count characters.
Oh, good. Because then I'd have to type everything out first and then say it afterwards.
Right. But now, character still counts, but I will not count your characters. Now,
that's even better.
Toby, I've given this some thought, and I'm hoping that you wrote your new book first, then carved it up into 140-character tweets, not the other way around.
Oh, no way. It was done first in 140 characters, and then the value-add stuff was put into it.
Oh, no.
Oh, yes.
Now, I know you did the interviews in 140-character tweets, but I thought surely this was all put together and then sliced up. But no, huh?
No, actually the tweets started first, and my idea was, could you actually write a real business book? I put that in quotes, a real business book, because then we'll have to discuss what real is. But a business book that was based on chapters, where people could actually go in, get information, understand what was happening on a particular topic. And, of course, social media just seemed to be the thing to do because it was on Twitter. So that's what I did. I started writing this book based upon Twitter interviews. And pretty soon I found that people really liked it. You mentioned in your intro that there was so little time. Well, people like to get their information in little bites and spoonfuls. A lot of people don't have time to read tomes and lots of words. So this seemed to work.
And you didn't find that people were kind of hesitant to read a book that was written in 140-character bursts?
Well, actually, I did. To be quite candid and transparent, because this is on social media, right? So we have to be that. The people that I found that pushed back the most were publishers. A dear friend of ours, both of ours, Nettie Hartsock, said to me, this is good. The information is great, and let me pitch it to some editors. And another friend of mine who's an agent, Yvonne DeVita, said the same thing. So we went out and we pitched it to traditional publishers, and that's the pushback I got from them. Who would want to read a book in 140 tweets? Who would want to read a book that was already published online? And so what we decided to do is put it in an ebook and give it away for free and see if it actually worked. And a lot of people think it does.
The only issue that I had with it is, I mean, it's got a ton of fascinating information and useful information for people who are interested in marketing and social media in general. I think, just for what this is worth, I think that to read things as a tweet on Twitter or wherever people read these, and then to read them in a book format, I think there's a little more editing of. It's a little bit hard to read at times to read these bursts as opposed to reading them in paragraph form, more traditional paragraph form. And that's not to take anything away from the content. The content is excellent, but just the style of it in the ebook, just a couple of months. That's why I thought, well, maybe you got it and then cut it up. But obviously, that's not the way.
No, I didn't. But I think you're right. I think remember, this is the first time that this has ever been done, so we're fooled around with the format. And the format is something that is could be traditionally downloaded into a digital reader. That was one of the concepts, is that people might want to take it and read it as they were away from their computer, or maybe they didn't want to download. It's almost 100 pages. And so the format is a little bit dicey, and I think if we had laid it out differently, maybe with some more graphics, maybe with some more introduction of call it traditional text, it might have flowed a little smoother.
Now, here's the amazing thing. Because it's an ebook, you can go back and change it at any time. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So we'll see where it goes, but it's been a fascinating experiment, to say the least. And
I wanted to ask you. And I want to come to the marketing aspect of this in a minute. But now I teach a social media for beginners class to parents at my daughter's school, and I find that women are more puzzled by social media to start. But once introduced and shown how it works, they tend to grab it like the brass ring at an old carnival and run with it and do things with it that I would never imagine.
You might be right. And let me tell you a story. I have a dear friend who is probably one of the most open, friendliest women I know. And when I introduced her to social media, we introduced her to LinkedIn first, because I thought she would be most comfortable with LinkedIn, because it most typically mirrors something that is in a business environment. And she got it initially, and she understood what was happening. And then I went back a couple of weeks after to see what she had done, and she hadn't done anything. And I said to her, Carol, why aren't you more involved? Why aren't you engaging in some of the groups that you wanted to develop relationships with those people? And she said, I'm uncomfortable entering conversations where I haven't been invited, and I'm uncomfortable talking to people who I don't really know. I don't know the rules. I don't know the etiquette. So I think perhaps when you think about women, maybe more so than men, or perhaps we're making generalizations here, we play by different rules. We like to be nice. We like to be kind. We like to be courteous. That's not to say you guys don't. However, what Carol said to me really does hold true with a lot of women that I've spoken to, especially women who are boomer generation or are at the very end of the X generation. We want to know that we're accepted before we barge in. And with social media, that's not the name of the game. You barge in and then you're accepted.
Yeah, it's been very interesting, and a lot of the women are very. They see a lot of social media as very invasive to them, and they're very fearful of, having their information taken or being contacted by particularly men, whether we're talking about socially or professionally or from a marketing point of view, that they don't want to be disturbed by. And but it's interesting, those that I've worked with who are on the professional side, once they get the hang of it, it's fascinating how they see ways to use it that I certainly didn't imagine.
Such as what, Bob?
They use it for business. They think of circles of people that they could grow their business to, expand an idea to. And some of them use it not so much for business as for social. They think, oh my God, I could reach out to these people this way instead of the way I've been doing it. And it seems to open up myriad possibilities.
Yeah. Maybe that's, again, the way that women socialize, and so it makes more sense for women. And I believe the latest stat that I saw said that there were over 50% of women who are engaging in social media. So as a whole, there are more females on the networks than there are guys. And it started out as a male-dominated geek forum.
Geek, I always thought was a male word for the most part. I never really thought of it so much as applying to women, although it sometimes does. But let me ask you this: do you find yourself as an authority on this? Are you working more with women than men, or there's no breakdown in terms of the sexes of the people who are seeking your advice and information?
There's no breakdown.
Okay.
Even in the classes that I've been teaching, it pretty much skews evenly. I don't find any more men than women. What I am finding is that the ages are beginning to climb a little bit older. So it's not really just for the millenniums or XY generation. The boomers are coming on, and once they get it, they really do open up, and they see different ways to engage. Pretty much, I think, as you're finding women in your son's classes, they find ways that they can share photos, share ideas, and then some women are open to the idea that business and personal can be merged, and they are comfortable with that. There are other people that are not comfortable with that, and they really want to keep their business lives separate and their personal lives separate. And that's another issue.
The biggest aha moment for me in teaching this class has been when I just offhandedly answered a question. Someone said to me, "Well, how do you put photos into these things, like on Facebook?" And I said, "Oh, well, that's easy. You just take them from your camera into iPhoto or a similar program on PC." And every woman in the class, and there were 10 women in the class, they all said, I have all these photos in my camera. I don't know how to get them out. Can you tell me how to do that? And I thought, okay, we have to go to a very basic level here. But once they understood how to get them out of there, it just exploded. Now I've allowed this to go to, and I've kind of steered this away from where we want to be. Let's talk more about what you're here for, is social media marketing. A lot of people look at that and think it's going to turn out to be kind of a fad, the way we have fad dieting. Is social media marketing, is it a big wave? Is it a little wave? Is it something that's going to be replaced in 12 months by something else?
It's a Tasumi, and it's not going away. It's going to change. It's going to morph based upon the technology. A couple of years ago, who would have believed that something as really mundane as Twitter would have captured the imaginations of so many people and really taken the world over in terms of communication? So that's one issue, is that the technology is going to change, but what really is at the very heart of this It's the basis of being able to, first of all, build relationships with people across cultures, across companies, across town. And that is basically business 101. I mean, that hasn't changed. The technology is just giving us a new way to do it. And so if people can remember that, it takes the fear away. And is social media going away? Definitely not.
But it does have the potential to morph more rapidly than other types of marketing. I mean, it wasn't that long ago when everyone was very excited because Rupert Murdoch had paid $660 million for MySpace, which seemed to be on a rocket ride to forever. And now it's basically, it's an afterthought. It's the home shopping network of the internet. It's kind of it's the flea market of social media.
Yeah, and interesting enough, MySpace seems to be going back to its roots of indie bands and indie comics and kids who don't want their parents to follow them anymore on Facebook because they don't think their parents are going to like MySpace anymore. So it's going back to its roots. But your point is exactly well taken, and it reemphasizes that this really is not about the technology. It's about connecting to people, and it's about giving people the opportunity to not only connect to the people behind the brand that we find that we love and heart, or that we hate and want better service from, and also to connect to people within the digital world of people who have the same interests that we do. So it's a people to people tactic. Strategy. Mm-hmm. I think of social media, I've heard so many times, going back to the marketing aspects of social media, I think of social media as a strategy. And a lot of people disagree. They find social media a tactic. But this is my philosophy of marketing. I believe that marketing is like, visualize an umbrella with all of these spokes coming out. The customer is at the very top of it, holds it together. But the spokes could be advertising, could be social media, could be PR. Those are the spokes. And then underneath each one of those, there are the tactics. So with social media, a tactic would be Twitter, it would be Facebook, it would be YouTube, it could be a podcast like we're doing right now. So those are the tactics that support the strategy.
One of the things I took note of in the book was pardon me, you have a 5-step social media direction model. And this is for, I think this was intended for global corporate, for corporate use. You talk about prepare and educate people on staff. You want to invite people who perceive they have a stake. You talked about encouraging people to talk openly about these things, confirm and prioritize the issues, create a red flag memo summarizing the highlights, challenges, opportunities, and actions. And I thought the most important line was actually at the very end. You say identify a social media champion, and that I think is one of the big concepts for most companies. Is you can't just throw it on somebody and say, okay, you're now in charge of social media for us. You really have to find someone within an organization, whether it's a business or an NGO or a nonprofit or whatever it might be, a person who has kind of a knack and a feel for it and an enthusiasm. It's not like saying, okay, you're now in charge of organizing our next corporate getaway.
Exactly. Until it's built into the fiber, into the DNA of an organization, there has to be somebody there who doesn't forget about it, who reminds you of what's important and what's not important, and who encourages different divisions and areas to take a closer look at it, and also encourages people to cross-communicate when they do find information. And what I found is that I should have put an S at the end of that. Should be champions. There really should be two champions. The first champion, and this is absolutely critical, and social media will not work to the success level that it has potential to work to unless that original champion is somebody at the C-suite level. Because no matter how grassroots we think social media is, if we're bringing it back into a business environment, it has to be given the same, call it Rodney Dangerfield respect. as any other business strategy, and it doesn't have that unless the C-level sanctions it. So it has to have a champion at the C-level, and then, let's be real, the C-level, the president, even though he or she may write a tweet every once in a while or may do a blog post, they don't have time to go down into the grassroots of the organization and make sure that the tactics are well done. So there has to be a person, call it street on the social media scene, who is actually making sure that things happen right. And that might be a director of social media, could be somebody in one area, maybe in customer service, who has taken it upon herself to make sure that things are coordinated across the organization. So 2 social media champions equals success.
What are some of the other key takeaways that you want to focus people on from the book? And by the way, let me give out that information again. So if you're listening to us and you're curious about Toby Bloomberg's book, Social Media Marketing GPS, you can get it for free, and I'd like to say only here, but it's not true. You can get it just by going to her website. It's Diva, D-I-V-A, marketingblog.com, and when you see the book cover down the right-hand side, you can click on that. So what are some of the key takeaways that you want to bring to people's attention about the book, in the book?
That it's a roadmap to help people develop a thought process on how to strategically put together a social media plan. There are tactical elements, but it doesn't delve deep into how-tos. So the book is not going to tell you how to develop a Twitter page. It will tell you how to put together a Twitter strategy. It will tell you some of the, I hate to use the word best practices, because that just, best practices here today, gone tomorrow, but it will help you craft a direction. And then surrounding each chapter are questions that will help you with that thought process. And then at the end of the book, all the questions are consolidated so that you don't have to keep flipping back and forth. So that's the big takeaway of the book. The big takeaway of the book is it will help you develop the process and the thinking in order to put together a social media strategy. And the other thing that I really hope it gets across is that social media is growing more and more complex. This book has 12 chapters, and a lot of the chapters, the concepts of the chapters, really haven't been discussed in all of the many, many, many social media books that are out on the market right now. So, for instance, we talk about ethics. That's key in this world. When you're building trust online, how do you do that? You don't have a face-to-face interchange. You and I can't reach across the telephone even and shake hands, Bob. So there has to be ways to develop ethics or create an ethical world in order to build that trust. So that's really what I want to get across, is that it's complex, but it can really take your brand to the next level.
Funny you should mention ethics. I say this tongue-in-cheek, but you have a chapter in there on social media ethics, and who knew you had to be ethical in the ether?
Well, you know what they say about social media, that if you're not ethical, you're going to get blown up anyway, so you might as well start off on the right foot.
But isn't that strange, though, in the land of scam, in the land of Nigerian get-rich schemes and stuff like that, which gets all the attention, that, it really is important that people do things above board, because, boy, it's so easy to be found out if you're not.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you think about this, I mean, what we're doing is we're really talking to business people who I believe at the heart are really ethical and want to do things the right way. And social media is a different way of doing it, and it's built on a culture. And sometimes if you don't know what that culture is, you tend to color outside those lines. And some of those lines, the values of social media, may not be apparent as you enter the space initially. But, Bob, when you think about it, social media really is the only marketing strategy, business strategy, that's built on these value systems. So transparency, authenticity, honesty. I mean, we try to think that the ad business is like that or the PR business is like that, but sometimes the tenants aren't that prominent.
Now, we've only got a couple minutes left, but I wanted to ask you if you could tell us about kind of a case study in your book that makes the case for social media marketing. That's a great example of someone who's done it and where it's been applied very well.
One of my favorites is Donna Lyons Miller. I brag a little bit, but she was one of my very first clients when we stepped into blogs. Back in the day, it was called Blogs and not social media. Donna has an online business that sells gourmet food. It's an interesting model and a small business, not deep pockets, and she took a chance on social media, blogs at that point in time. At that point in time when she launched, 2005, she was one of the first e-commerce companies to step out into the space. And what we decided to do is we decided to have the voice of the blog be a compilation of a character. And that character was T. Alexander. And T. Alexander ran through her website, ran through her email, so her patrons were familiar with the character. Well, the social media world, the blogosphere at that point in time, thought that we were creating a false voice. And we talk about ethics. It was very ethical. We were very transparent. We told people what we were doing and why we were doing it right on the blog, but they blew us up. And major names in the social media industry blew us up. And we ate our own dog food, and we went back and we posted comments on the blogs that disagreed with us, telling them our side of the story and why we were doing this. And 5 years later, her blog is still running strong. And she can track people going from her blog into her website into, I believe, actually an ordering system. And she's found that when people go from the blog to her website, they tend to go deeper into the site and stay longer because they've developed some sort of a relationship, want to understand more about what she's doing. And I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, please.
One of the best lessons that we learned from that is that the content of a blog or the content now of Twitter or Facebook has to be a value-added benefit to your customer, even though you can disperse information about your products and services, it really has to skew value-add as opposed to pushing information out. So,
well, I'm sorry. We're going to run out of time in just a second. I wanted to say that one of the other things that I found very useful about this ebook is that you give the Twitter addresses for the thought leaders that you interview in the book, so readers can follow them, or I could go follow them. And what was funny to me about that was one of the guys in the book is Bill Flitter, who I hadn't made the connection, and I added him on Twitter, and I read his bio more carefully, and he's the founder of Deliver.it, which I just started using about 2 weeks ago, and it's just a random connection. So good.
Excellent.
There.
Excellent.
You're an evil genius, Toby Bloomberg.
I'm an evil genius. Can I quote that, Bob Edelman? Can I quote it from you? Can
Absolutely.
I put that in my next book?
Mr. Media says Toby Bloomberg is an evil genius. Absolutely.
I love it.
Listen, folks, you can download a free copy of Social Media Authority, Toby Bloomberg's new ebook, from her blog site, divamarketingblog.com. The book is Social Media Marketing GPS. And while there, of course, you can subscribe to her email newsletter and search her blog for even more timely tips. And Toby, a lot talking to you. Thank you so much for the information and for joining us on Mr. Media today.
My pleasure.
Good talking to you, and good luck with the book.
Thank you.
All right, bye-bye. And, folks, for more original interviews with your favorite bloggers and social media stars, surf over to our main website, mrmedia.com, mrmedia.com. And please take advantage of this great offer for Mr. Media radio listeners. Go to audiblepodcast.com/mrmedia to get a free audiobook download of your choice when you sign up today. Again, that's audiblepodcast.com/mrmedia for your free audiobook. Subscribe to Mr. Media on iTunes, and you'll never miss a show. Just search Mr. Media Interviews from within iTunes and subscribe for free. You can also listen with a piece of string and a tin can in many locations. If you've got an idea for a guest, email me directly at bob@andelman.com. And you can follow me on Facebook or Twitter, twitter.com/Andelman, or on Facebook, just search Mr. Media Interviews. Thanks so much for joining us today. Always appreciate you sharing a piece of your day with Mr. Media. Thanks for listening, everybody.